T minus 1 minute. T minus 50 seconds. T minus 40 seconds. T minus 30 seconds. T minus 20 seconds. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Tonight on Truth Today, we're going to be discussing Islam's threat to civilization, especially in light of Syria. In studio, I have with me guests, my good friend David Baldovin, who's a former FBI agent. We're going to have Dick Manasari from Shariah Crime Stoppers, and hopefully also former police chief David Boras. We're going to be talking about Sharia, Jihad, sabotage of America, and why is there denial in the world of the threat of Islam. That and much more right now on Truth Today. Well, good evening, folks. This is Pastor Shariah Hayden with Truth in Love Ministry. Thank you so much for joining us live in studio tonight. And I thank you for your patience tonight. We had just some technical issues that we're just having with our guests coming on. And so you know how it is when you're talking about these things. The enemy always gets involved and wants to try to stop the message. But perfectly, we have two of our three guests on, and we're going to get our last guest on here hopefully very shortly. But I thank you for joining us tonight. I thank you again for your patience. Hey, just want to encourage you and remind you, if you happen to be on Facebook, remember that we are live streaming to Rumble and to Facebook. This is our Rumble channel, rumble.com/Shariah Hayden, rumble.com/Shariah Hayden. Please do us two favors. One, click follow if you want to follow our page, and two, click like on the content. If it's a blessing to you, that's a blessing to us to help us get our viewership up, especially since we were deplatformed off of YouTube a couple of years ago for being truth tellers. Also, if you want to know more about our ministry, go to tilministry.com, tilministry.com. Check out all of our content. If you want us to come to your area and speak, if you have a group, a church, a political group that can host us, please contact us through the ministry. And Lord willing, we'd love to be able to come to your area. In fact, I'm working right now on some events in Wisconsin, Minnesota for early May. And we're going to be having an event here in Tennessee the first week of May, a couple of events actually. Standing with Israel. We're going to have our friend Aaron Lavarco here in town with us from Israel. He's coming all the way over to the States. So please check that out as well. I don't want to spend a lot of time in the intro tonight because I want to get to our guests. We have a lot of content Tonight we are discussing Islam's threat to civilization and what seems to be the denial of the world, especially in light of what's going on right now in Syria, the threat to Syria, the threat to the Christians, the Alawites, the threat to Israel, the threat to America. What do we see happening on our streets just today? Just today, you may have seen the headlines about this so-called pro-Palestinian group taking over Trump Tower in New York. We're going to be talking about that with our guest. And we're going to be digging into what is Islam? Why would it be a threat to civilization? What is jihad as a communal obligation? What is Shariah? What are these things? And if you guys have been following our show and know my background as a former Muslim who came out of Islam almost 26 years ago and is now a Christian pastor, I have served as a police officer. I've run for office and done training for law enforcement in these issues, in these subjects, traveled as a pastor and spoken at hundreds and hundreds of churches and political organizations, met with legislators, trying to wake up America, trying to be able to educate America on what's going on. And my guests tonight have done the same. They have been committed to serving this country, and I'm honored to have them on. Very quickly, though, I want to just share with you our Bible verse tonight, and it is one that is important both from an aspect of our country, politically speaking, our Constitution, and spiritually speaking, because the Bible in 2 Corinthians chapter 6, the Apostle Paul, by the Holy Spirit, speaks of us not being unequally yoked with unbelievers. Now, as I've talked about before on the program, everybody likes to take that verse and talk about marriage. And it can apply to marriage. But in the context of the passage, it is talking about being holy, being set apart as believers, as Christ followers. And it very clearly says that we are not to be unequally yoked with unbelievers, meaning that we have no spiritual enterprise, we have no spiritual connection, we have no spiritual common ground with unbelievers. And for a country like America that was founded on Christian principles, that was founded where our declaration speaks of the God of the Bible, the founders ascribed almost 40% of all of their quotes were ascribing verses of the Bible. Even the deists among our founders ascribed that Christianity is the best way to set up a country, to set up a nation. So for a nation like that had that foundation, and for the Church of Jesus Christ today, that ought to be proclaiming the good news, the gospel of Jesus Christ that brought me out of the darkness of Islam almost 26 years ago, we are unfortunately witnessing this yoking with unbelievers, this yoking with Muslims, believing that Islam is not a threat to the world, that Islam is not a threat to the church, spirituality, to the advancement of the gospel. Paul goes on to say, for what fellowship has righteousness with lawlessness? And what communion has light with darkness? And what accord has Christ with Belial? Or what part has a believer with an unbeliever? And what agreement has a temple of God with idols? For you are the temple of the living God. So therefore, in context of that, we're going to be talking tonight a lot about national security, a lot about ideology, but I want to make sure that it is couched for us as believers on this program in the spiritual recognition that our fight is not just with flesh and blood, but with powers and principalities, and we're dealing with the spiritual deception of the age. And the greatest spiritual deception of the age right now is what is happening globally with the acceptance of the world with Islam. The greatest lie that is out there right now, perhaps other than what Satan brought about in the garden, did God really say? The greatest lie out there is Islam is a religion of peace. Islam is tolerant and peaceful, can coexist. That's the greatest lie. And history has proven that, and our guests tonight are going to be talking about that. So let me bring in our guests tonight. And by the way, if you guys have comments, first of all, thank you everybody for joining. Let us know where you're from if you can. We got folks from all over the place joining us tonight. I saw somebody is joining us from Brisbane, Australia. Welcome. From all over the United States. Welcome. And if you do have questions, ask a question in the comments. And if we have time with our guests, we're going to, get to it if we can, the last few minutes. However, this is hopefully the first of many with this panel that we're going to try to have on periodically over the time. So first of all, I want to just bring on two of my guests. First of all, I had Dick Manasseri on with me. Dick and I have done lots of shows together. He led an organization called Shariah Crime Stoppers, trying to warn about Sharia law. And so, Dick, welcome to you tonight. Thank you for being with us on the program.
Well, happy to be here once again. And we really appreciate your taking the time to put this topic, which most people know nothing about, in front of people. Thank you, Sharon.
Amen to that. Amen to that. Then I also want to bring on my good friend, David Baldovin. David, brother, good to see you. David is a former retired FBI agent. And David, in just a second, if you want to just give a quick update, backstory, I'd love for you to share just briefly your story of serving. Thank you for your service, by the way, to our nation. And I so highly respect you and value our friendship. And then we're going to have, hopefully, David Boras. Now, Dick, I see that he still doesn't have his camera on. So maybe if you can text him to let him know.
You might want to see
all that comes.
There it is.
That's what comes up. So, David, can you hear me?
I hear you fine, Sharon.
Okay, so we hear David. That's good. We just can't. So, is he going without camera?
Well, we were not able to fix that. If we've got that powerful voice and that wisdom, I'd say we should go ahead.
No problem. Yeah, no problem. And so, David Baldovin, let's start with you. If you could just give us just a quick backstory, your resume, and then we'll move to David Boras in a minute.
Great to be with you, Sharam, Dick, David. Good to see you guys again, although we can't see David Boras. But 31 years in the FBI. A long time ago, 1969 to 2000, the last day of 2000 was my last day of work. So basically, 24 and a half years retired now. I was never involved in what we call terrorism investigations. My whole career, I worked what we call general criminal investigations, the criminal side, not the counterintelligence side. Or the espionage side. So I did not know what Islam was. I did not know what the Muslim Brotherhood was. This all had to be a learning, an education motivated by my will to learn, actually, when I learned about the subversion of FBI training in 2011, 2012. And I said, well, what is this? What is this all about? This is my former agency, and even though I'm retired, the oath that I took is never retired. The oath that all of us took is never retired. So I set about to educate myself, and I've had some wonderful mentors along the way to start me out and to point me in the right direction. One of them, of course, is your host tonight, who came along a little later in my educational process, but I guess, Sharam, it's been about, I want to say 2016, somewhere in there where you and I first linked up. So we're working on about 9 years.
Yep.
And I had met David Boras in 2015 and Dick right along the same time, maybe not quite that long ago. But yeah, we all have the same thing in common. Sharam, I was not raised with the Bible, but when I started this educational process on Islam, the Muslim Brotherhood, etc., I sat down and I read the Quran.
Mm.
Well, and then I sat back to myself and I said, you know what? I was raised Christian, but I was never raised with the Bible per se. Okay. Now, I read the Quran, so maybe I ought to just sit down and read the Bible. Okay.
Amen.
And I
Amen.
started at Genesis, and I went through, to Revelation, and that started about probably before I met you, actually. So there's no telling how many times now I go back and forth between different parts of the Bible, and I read it every week. So yeah, that's my story in a nutshell, and the motivation to learn about this subject matter tonight and the threat to Western civilization is just the fact that I was motivated to do so through the trying to protect our country, trying to inform citizens, okay, trying to educate myself first, because you can't inform somebody else. And that's why I decided to read the Quran for myself. I just didn't want to have somebody else tell me what was in the Quran. I wanted to read it for myself. And the answers are all in there. Plus, there's other literature also, the Sunnah of Muhammad and the Reliance of the Traveler.
Right.
That sets forth everything there is to know really about Sharia, about what Sharia is, Islamic law. And that's my story in a nutshell.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, David. Thank you again for being with us. And David Boras, if you could just take a minute and give us your background and just your time of service as well. We'd be grateful to hear that.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Ram. Like David, I'm self-taught. My journey started back in 2009 when we had the attack at Fort Hood. And if you recall, the administration at that time labeled it workplace violence.
Right.
I didn't think it was workplace violence because of the association of the shooter to Islam. So I decided to find out for myself, just like David Baldovin did, what is this religion all about? And the very first book that I read was someone by the name of Andrew McCarthy wrote The Grand Jihad, where he talked about the first World Trade Center attack back in 1973, I believe. And so it's been a downward spiral, if you will, ever since to acquaint myself with what this threat is all about. And when I was a police chief, I started in 2009 and left in 2012 to go full time to start teaching law enforcement officers about the nature of this threat. And one of the perhaps most disturbing things that I learned during that period was when I was teaching former military who had served both in Iraq and Afghanistan, and they would come up to me at class breaks and indicate how angry they were for finally now learning the truth about what Islam is about. Because when they were in the service, they never got the truth about Islam.
Right.
It was always called terrorism or anti-terrorism training or what have you. And they had no clue of why it was that they were serving their country, putting their lives on the ground in Iraq and Afghanistan. And it's because all of that training was purged out back in 2011, 2012 by Barack Obama and his minions. He decided at that time that there was not going to be any training that linked Islam to any form of terrorism or violence. And so that was purged out of all branches of the service, the reserves, the National Guard, as well as federal law enforcement, the FBI, Department of Homeland Security, all of them were blacked out for training. And unfortunately, that continues to this day. So none of our federal partners are being introduced to the true nature of the threat. So hopefully we'll be able to bridge that gap for everybody starting tonight.
Yeah, amen to that, David. And that's our goal. That's our goal here. And as gentlemen, we talked about the fact that we believe the time is once again upon us, that maybe there's a window of opportunity where maybe there's ears to hear now what Islam is, why, and again, if you saw, I titled our program tonight, "The Threat to Civilization," and what appears to me to be a denial. I was talking actually to a sister in the Lord today from Minnesota. I was on her show this morning, and she was asking me the question, like, do people in Minnesota, because they play this Minnesota nice, or we're Minnesota nice, and so we just we're all want to get along, do they honestly not understand the threat that Islam poses? Do the churches not understand the threat that Islam poses? And my answer was yes. It's either willful ignorance or it's blatant deception, meaning they know what they're doing, but they're deceiving. Certainly we know, and we'll talk about in tonight and hopefully subsequent shows, that Islam is deceptive to its core. I was talking on Tuesday on the show with my spiritual father, who's from Iran as well. He's a believer now, a Christian. And he was telling me that when he visited Mecca, that right on the Kaaba in Mecca, on that cubed building that has the black cloth on it, that it has the 99 names of their God, Allah, this false God. And that one of those names is that Allah is the greatest of the deceivers. And that is in the Quran. That is in, if people like David, you said, David Baldovin, you said, I read the Quran. If you read it for yourself, that, yeah, there you go. That it is there. And David, what's the verse of that you have?
It's Surah chapter 9, I believe it is, from the Quran. Yep. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I would like for your readers to question or think about whether this statement fits in with Jesus Christ or with the God of the Bible. The quote is, and when those who became infidels deceive you to detain you or to kill you or to expel you, and they deceive, and Allah deceives, and Allah is the best deceiver, which is what you're just talking about at the Kaaba. Yeah. Now, Who is the father of lies?
That's right.
Who is the father of lies? I'll just ask that simple question.
Yeah, I mean, that's a straightforward question, right? And yet, again, there seems to be a willful denial, a willful choosing, and what on this program and on other programs that we've covered, we've exposed the fact that there is an attempt, even within, from both the Catholic Church, as Dick, you know very well, but also within many of the mainline denomination evangelicals, to really protect Islam. I feel like they're the protectors. And by the way, that's what we've seen in person. Oftentimes when I'm traveling and we're protested, what do we see? Like this happened to us in Sioux Falls in 2017, when our conference there was threatened by a heavily armed Muslim from Saudi Arabia with this 5 weapons and 1,250 rounds of ammo. And the Sioux Falls Police Department was willfully ignorant. But who was out there protesting along with the Islamic Society of Sioux Falls? The mosque there that we identified is owned by the Muslim Brotherhood. It is a North American Islamic Trust-owned mosque. Who was out there protecting them? Who was out there actually circling them? It was the interfaith Christians that were circling them, protecting the Muslims, and denying this fact, as you said, David Baldovin, that the Quran itself states that Allah is the greatest of the deceivers, and we should know the father of lies, that's Satan. So let me get to our first question here, because David, you may know, and both Davids may know, a former FBI guy, Gothrop. Do you know David? You know Gothrop?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was speaking with Gothrop with Bill in Idaho, and we met together, and we were meeting with the Attorney General's office there. and he challenged me to communicate that, because, one of the challenges we face is that Islam gets protected as a religion. David Boras, you said this. You said that you were looking at this religion. Can I ask you a question, David Boras? Do you still believe that it's just a religion?
Absolutely not.
So explain that to our audience real quick.
To get to the deception that you're talking about, they're trying to perpetrate the myth that there's different types of Islam, one being radical Islam or more traditional Islam. As the president of Turkey has said, Islam is Islam.
Right.
There are no variations to it. So when our recent director of Homeland or of our intelligence community said radical Islam is the greatest threat to the homeland or to national security, she's making a mistake. There's no such thing as radical Islam. There is Islam, period. And Islam says that jihad sole purpose is to establish the religion of Islam. That's the purpose of it. And they're going to do it through warfare. And they've been doing it through warfare, well, over 2,000 years.
Exactly.
Just look at the history books.
Yeah. And you're talking, of course, about Tulsi Gabbard now, the DNI, the head of the DNI, Director of National Intelligence, that comes in. And some people were celebrating that, saying, oh, great. I mean, she's not using the term that we saw after, and you guys talked about Barack Obama and the purging that happened, David, in 2011, 2012, and the fact that we went from terms like jihad and Islam to terms like violent extremism, domestic terrorism, where white supremacy became, the new threat. So some people were celebrating the fact that she's coming back in and saying, now our greatest threat is radical Islamic terrorism. And yet we can dissect all three of those words. And Dick, you sent me a great article from the American Thinker on that, I think, that they were dissecting how all three of those words are incorrect. Right. Radical Islamic terrorism, because there's no such thing as terrorism within Islam. I mean, they're to cause terror. So David Baldovin, you had go ahead. Yes, sir.
Yeah, you mentioned my friend Bill Gothrop. Just for your audience, Bill Gothrop was a former, he's now retired, FBI intelligence analyst who taught the truth about Islam and the doctrinal motivations behind Islamic violence, behind jihad. And Bill Gothrop was one of the ones purged out from our training program in 2011/2012, right in that, along with Bill Warner's papers, documents, and work that were being used at the FBI Academy. All of his work was purged out. None of this is secret that I'm saying. This is all public knowledge information. Right. Bill Gothrop, his work was purged, as well as him personally was purged out, right, taken away. And I believe Robert Spencer was also a contractor back then with the FBI teaching at Quantico. He was gone also. So that's basically who Bill Gothrop is that you referred to, Sharon.
And where I lost my train of thought, and I'm coming to you just in a second, Dick, is that Bill challenged me to talk about Islam as what he calls a civilization challenger. Right. And so that terminology, I think, is very interesting for us to look at tactically as we're dealing with the current environment, with law enforcement, with elected officials, and with, I don't know, spiritually, because, the churches are so all over the place. But this is his book that he gave me, The Criminal Investigator Intelligence Analyst Handbook of Islam. And I have this on my desk as well, along with the Usama Datuk's Quran that he translated. I know that's what you have, David. And then, of course, we have the Reliance of the Traveler here. Mine's well worn out, as you can see. And then I have the explanatory memorandum of the Muslim. So, we have the documents. Dick, go ahead. You were going to comment.
Well, I just want to go back to the question about whether Islam is a religion. But first of all,
Yes.
let me say that the other three gentlemen here are all law enforcement people. I'm not, and I'm very proud to know you guys. One of the things that David Boris taught me is, David, I'm just going to throw the ball to you. We're talking about religion, right? You've got a picture of an umbrella where the First Amendment protects various religions, and you talk about prayer and fasting and
right here. Keep talking, Dick. It's right here. Go ahead.
Holidays being, part of religion, but it's the 85% that is not. David Boris, just speak to this slide that you put together, please. David, can you see it?
Yeah. Everything you see on the right-hand side of the screen is prescribed under Sharia law. Everything that you see on the right-hand side of your screen has reference in the Quran. And also everything that's on the right-hand side of your screen is either a violation of our federal law and or our state laws. Those are all criminal violations that are promoted by Islam. And they can't wiggle out of that because they're all well documented in that book that Sharam and David just referenced. They're in the Sharia law. So you can't get out of that box. They're there. They can deny it all they want, but they're there.
But yet, gentlemen, for those of us, as Dick, you mentioned, within law enforcement, we've seen this in the training. When I met, going back to what I just talked about last year, meeting with the Attorney General's office, the chief of staff for the Attorney General in the state of Idaho sat there with myself and Bill and said, we cannot use the word Sharia. It is a non-starter.
Oh my God.
That was his response to us as the chief of staff of the Attorney General of the state of Idaho, where we had been trying for years to get something like American laws for American courts passed through, the idea of at least protecting our Constitution. Because again, going back to this umbrella, as David Boris just said, everything that's on the right is already within statute. It's already within law here in the United States. And yet you see on the left, on the umbrella there, Islam is lumped in with these other religious expressions as a protected religion. Yet we establish, number one, it is not a religion. It is a governmental law. So let's define real quick Sharia. So we say Sharia law, but really it's Sharia Allah. So it is the path or the way of Allah. And so therefore, can I ask you, David Baldovin, I'm coming to you in a second, but I want to ask David Boris, because I know, David, you also teach on this. What percentage do you think of this book, The Reliance of the Traveler, which is the encapsulated case law? By the way, I just want to read this up front, because I just want to read the certification in case someone says, oh, this is one version, right? It's one version of this. Here is the certification from Al-Azhar. So Al-Azhar is in Cairo, Egypt. That is the oldest Sunni Islamic school in the world. And it says, in response to the request you have submitted concerning the examination of the English translation of the book Umdat al-Salik wa Udat al-Nasik, that's what this book is, by Ahmad ibn Naghib in the Shafi'ah School of Jurisprudence, together with appendices by Islamic scholars on matters of Islamic law, tenets of faith, and personal ethics and character. We certify that the above-mentioned translation corresponds to the Arabic original and conforms to the practice and faith of the Orthodox Sunni community, which is about 83 to 85% of the world's Muslim population. There is no objection to printing it and circulating it. So I just want to reference that. Real quick, David Boris, before we go to David Baldovin, what percentage of this, in your experience, is religious versus dealing with matters of law? Everything that you have on that umbrella there, dealing with women, sex, polygamy, pedophilia, honor killings, apostasy, jihad. What percentage do you think? And I guess the second question, do you see a separation between the two?
Well, you're going to get me now. I couldn't tell you what percentage, but it's a very low percentage of what Sharia that it actually addresses religious practices as you and I and others in this on this broadcast understand it to be. The vast majority has to do with civil law, how to get along with other people, how to conduct businesses. It is A to Z of how to comport your life, because it says reliance of the traveler through life. And that's what it covers, all aspects of a person's life, not just those few religious practices such as prayer and the paying of alms and that sort of thing.
So thank you for that. David, go ahead. And then I want to establish a couple of things tonight for our audience, guys. Because number one, we want to establish that Islam is Islam. David said it earlier. Recep Erdogan, the president of Turkey, said, Islam is Islam. So there's a lot of stuff out there, right, about, well, you have the Shia Muslims, about 13% or so approximately. You have the Sunnis. But, well, what about these peaceful Muslims? You have the Ahmadiyya. You have the Sufi Muslims. You have the Alawi, which we're going to talk about here from Syria. But let's establish the fact that Islam is Islam. And to that end, you guys are in agreement from your studies, your looking at textual evidence and Islamic history, that there is no such thing as radical Islamic terrorism. So what is the point?
Absolutely not. There is no such thing as that. It's all embedded in Sharia. That's where you find it. You can pick and try to distort that by saying, well, not all Muslims are jihadists. And that's true. I want to make sure that the listeners understand that there are many millions of peaceful Muslims out there because they are not practicing all aspects of their faith. But that doesn't change the reality that Islam itself is Islam and has many, many verses that talk about jihad to establish the religion.
Exactly. David Baldwin, go ahead.
The issue of religion, Sharam, and your guests, Stephen Coughlin and our deceased mutual friend Philip Haney, over the years have discussed the fact that it is not a religious issue. The First Amendment, which protects religious freedom, the First Amendment is an amendment to what, as Philip Haney would say? It's an amendment to the original document called the United States Constitution. And what is Article 6 of the United States Constitution? The supreme law of the land, the Constitution shall be the supreme law of the land. What Islam, through its various different tentacles, the Muslim Brotherhood, Hamas, all the organizations that manifest the religion of so-called religion of Islam, the First Amendment does not. Well, first of all, I lost my train of thought there. But Sharia is what is trying to be implemented by the Muslim Brotherhood here in this country. It's no secret. It's we talk about in their own words. Okay, these are not for your audience what we're discussing tonight has not, it hasn't been by myself, by David Boris, by Dick Manaseri, by yourself. You're a former Muslim. And, I can say for myself that I haven't invented what we're talking about here tonight. It was invented in the 7th century, okay, and thereafter, right? It was invented in the 7th century and thereafter by the various caliphs and so forth. But the First Amendment does not protect a devout Muslim from driving a truck down Bourbon Street on New Year's Day, killing 14 people, I believe it was. The First Amendment does not protect the jihadists at Fort Hood. The First Amendment does not protect the jihadis in San Bernardino or the jihadists in the Pulse nightclub. And the First Amendment does not protect the shooter in Chattanooga, here not too far from me. So, for the religious aspect of it, it's not a religious issue. It's a constitutional issue. And, when you talk about your Idaho AG, he fails to apparently understand that these folks are trying to implement a law called Shariah that is 180 degrees, in the opposite direction of the U.S. Constitution. They are completely incompatible, and I'll leave it there for now.
Exactly. But we faced the challenge, and I'm going to go to Dick. We faced the challenge of the fact that, as you mentioned, all those examples, and going back to, here's another screenshot, again, of different types of crimes that Sharia sanctions. And if we have time, I want David Boris to comment, but, female genital mutilation, that's circumcision, the idea that rape is permitted, the idea that child brides are what we call pedophilia, human trafficking, honor violence, polygamy. Obviously, Muslims are permitted to marry up to 4 wives, child marriage, wife beating. So we're going to talk about this, apostasy for sure. But then the argument always is, well, okay, again, you guys are talking about the radicals, that this is not Islam. So Dick, comment real quick, and then I want to ask you guys a question about Syria, because right now, one of the things that I'm seeing a lot out there, we're either seeing no coverage. I mean, I've been shocked I'm not shocked by the lack of coverage from the leftist media, from the lying media, but even, quote, right-wing sources. There's not one article that's been on Fox News. There's nothing on, Gateway Pundit. The only ones that have covered Syria have been like Jihad Watch, Geller Report, a little bit out of Jerusalem Post or Israel Times. So it is unbelievable to me. And I just talked to somebody that I know that works in the White House saying, where is the statement? Where is the condemnation? So Dick, go ahead and comment. And I want to ask you guys a specific question about Syria. Go ahead.
Well, I appreciate that. I want to come to that very important topic. I just want to make the point, make sure everybody understands. Sharia is a way of life. All those crimes, clearly those are crimes that you listed there. They are sanctioned. It's not that these are sanctioned. If in the mosque in the Middle East or the mosque in Detroit or the mosque in Texas, you are entitled and sanctioned to behave that way in America. Well, wait a minute. One of those things you are behaved to do is sedition. So Sharia talks about not the Constitution being the law of the land, but Sharia. So people that are promoting and teaching Sharia and promoting it are actually allowing the American Constitution to be replaced. That's the sanction. That's sanctioned by Sharia. The imams talk about it. They want to replace the U.S. Constitution as the law of the land with Sharia, which allows all the crimes on that page.
Absolutely. So here's my question for you guys. So one of the things that I do hear or I've seen in the last week on the reporting is they want to be able to say, well, this is sectarian violence. Muslims are killing Muslims in Syria. What's the big deal? Happens all the time, right? It's happened in Iraq. It happens all over the world. Besides the fact that we have very specific evidence, and I want to show you guys just a few headlines here regarding the fact that Christians, like, for example, this one right here, human rights group in Syria says, jihadis are telling Christians, you're next. Eyewitnesses are confirming continuously that the Syrian leader al-Julani's Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. This is a offshoot of the Al-Qaeda ISIS group that we thought was dead, right? I mean, I thought Trump said ISIS is gone, who are massacring civilians in Syria. Now they're telling the Christians are next. And this is why I came out in December and did a show about the fall of Damascus and the fall of Bashar al-Assad. And I said, this is bad. This is not something to be excited about. So here's the question. I'm going to read to you a verse out of Surah chapter 9. And because people ask me all the time, well, why would Muslims want to go against Christians and Jews? And where is this in the Quran? So Surah chapter 9, according to the prophet of Islam himself, Muhammad, O you prophet, perform jihad. And then when we come out of this, I want David Boras here to define for us the word jihad from their sources, Islamic texts. But here it says, perform jihad against the infidels and the hypocrites and be harsh with them. And their abode will be hell, and evil is the final place. So we all know what the infidel is, correct? That is anybody that is not a Muslim. So since the birth of Islam, and I've heard Dr. Bill Warner say, our good friend Dr. Bill Warner, that if there was no apostasy laws in Islam, meaning that the permission to kill somebody like myself that has left Islam, I've apostatized, and that's why I stopped counting at over 30 death threats, because without apostasy laws, would you agree there would be no Islam? Does that make sense?
Go ahead.
If there wasn't the punishment of leaving Islam with the threat of death, Islam would have died out 1,400 years ago.
Yes.
But now, infidel is very clear. But what is the word hypocrite? So I'm just defining this, and I'm going to go to David Boras for jihad. The word hypocrite, folks, in the Quran, in Sharia, is dealing with Muslims who are not being true Muslims. Like we would say, as a Christian pastor, I'd say, if somebody claims to be a Christian, but they're living for the world, they're not living according to the Bible, they're not whatever, I would say, well, that's hypocrisy, right? They're being hypocrites. Now, we don't go kill them, right? I don't issue a fatwa, a religious ruling in my church and say, now let's go kill somebody. But the hypocrite, according to the Quran, are those Muslims like the Alawites right now in Syria, who were obviously their allegiance was to Bashar al-Assad, because Bashar al-Assad himself was an Alawite. The Alawites reject abrogation. They reject the latter verses of the Quran. They want to live a private faith, not a governmental faith, not the upper house faith. They reject. There's some aspects of mysticism in their beliefs. So the Salafi, strict Sunni, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, Jilani, he can put a suit on all day long. But as Erdogan said, who was, by the way, backing them in Syria, Islam is Islam. So they're going to kill the lukewarm Muslims. You get it, folks? They're killing the Alawites, and that's true ethnic cleansing. All the bluster about Israel is committing ethnic cleansing against the Arabs and the Gaza, blah, blah, blah. This is ethnic cleansing. Their own words are saying, this was an article that I covered a few days ago. Let me see if I can bring this up here real quick. Here's an article of a commander of this organization saying that do not leave one Alawite alive. So he says to the Mujahideen. So let me go to that. There's the word. David Boras, can you define for us what is jihad? We're using the word jihad. We're saying that this is an obligation of every Muslim. It's not just radical. So please explain to us, what is jihad?
Well, it's warfare to establish their very beliefs under Sharia. If you look into the green book that you just showed, it says, I quote, I have been commanded to fight people utterly that testify that there is no God except Allah, and that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. So it is an obligation of all Muslims to fight non-believers. And that's what you see being played out in various parts of Africa and the Middle East today.
So here's an interesting distinction, though, that I want to bring up. So it says in the Reliance there, this is in section, if anybody has the book, you can look it up yourself. We're not making this up. This is all sourced. I read for you earlier, folks, that the oldest Islamic institution on the planet, Al-Azhar University. Remember when you guys remember Obama 2009? Remember when he went in front in Egypt and the whole, yeah, thank you, David. There you go. Remember he said the Holy Quran, 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 right? And he said that, if the political winds shift, remember what he said? I'm with you.
Yeah.
Well, guess where he was speaking, right? He was speaking at Al-Azhar. That's where he was speaking in 2009 upon his first tour as president. So this section says, David Boers, I want to ask you, it says, this is the lesser jihad. So the warfare against non-Muslims, unbelievers, to establish Islam as the religion of choice, as the religion not just of choice, but the religion of force, that you have to become a Muslim. Why is it the lesser jihad? Because it says for the greater jihad is spiritual warfare against the self, against sin. So anybody want to guess why they believe that it's lesser than the spiritual, David?
Well, Muhammad told his fighters upon returning from battle, now you must face the greater jihad, which was warfare from within. The warfare of evil that presides within everybody. They recognize that. So you're going to have inner conflict. But nonetheless, the vast majority of jihad that book talks about is the lesser jihad, just like Sharon talks about, and what that means. And it is a commandment for all Muslims to follow it. Look, chapter 9, verse 5. It is the verse of the sword.
Yes.
And it will tell you all you need to know about jihad.
Yes. And David, it also says in section 09.1 that this is a communal obligation, meaning that every Muslim,
correct.
Every Muslim is obligation means mandatory. It's obligated, correct, to do that.
That's
correct.
Okay.
So we've established tonight that every Muslim is commanded to wage jihad, meaning that they have to wage some form of warfare against unbelievers. So if Muslims right now in Syria are killing Christians, this is permissible, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Absolutely.
But also killing other Muslims if they're not following, like my dad. You guys, some of you know the story. My dad was a career military officer under the army of the Shah of Iran. My dad rarely ever went to the mosque. He didn't do daily prayers. He smoked, which is forbidden in Islam. He ate pork. It's forbidden in Islam. He drank alcohol. It's forbidden in Islam. I always say to people, he was a good sinner, like we all were before Christ, right? Dick, when you talk about and have talked about Sharia as a way of life, what is it that you see as the greatest lack of understanding? Because after all, we have plenty of evidence of Muslims in America who tell you once they are in a community that they feel like they have more strength. By the way, you guys know that perhaps I'm one of the few people, along with you gentlemen, that has brought up the idea and the understanding that Islam operates in a duality of two houses. There's a lower house, Dar al-Harb, the house of warfare, and then there's the upper house, Dar al-Islam, or the house of surrender. So, Dick, what do you see as this obligation to? By the way, as you're talking, I just want to be, and I'm not doing this to be graphic, but this is an article here. It is the atrocities of jihadists. There's the word jihad in Syria and the shameful silence of Israel's enemies. So again, attack Israel all you want, apparently, right? But nobody is saying anything about what's going on in Syria. Here is another horrible, horrible headline: horrific rape, mutilation, torture of Alawite Christian non-Muslim girls in Syria. So people need to see this, because this is evil. This is, we would say, scripturally, from a Bible standpoint, demonic. And here's another headline: a Kurdish Syrian writer, that they're purging Syria of the Alawites. Isn't that ethnic cleansing?
Absolutely. It's ethnic cleansing, and it's just the tip of the iceberg. I think we need to understand that Sharia touches all these bases. We're focusing on people getting beheaded. If we remember ISIS, and somehow we forget, when ISIS goes away, we forget. But underneath ISIS is all the other crimes that David Boris teaches people about, including men can marry young girls at the age of 9. The fact that men can have sex with young boys under age of 11, etc. This is sanctioned. The fact that women are mutilated, all those things are really need to be aware of. It's not just, it's the big terrible things we see, but there are 3,400 mosques in America, and this is taught as acceptable behavior wherever you live, even if it violates the local laws or the constitution of the land. That's the big threat to us personally. From a world perspective, we look at Syria and we recognize, how could a moral world not be outraged? And we have to really call it like it is. Look who is supporting the new regime in Syria with their murdering. Well, Erdogan, the man who runs Turkey, is responsible. He armed them. He's celebrating them. So we have a NATO member, Erdogan from Turkey, that is behind this killing. He's been invited to the EU for meetings. So European Union, NATO people embrace this new murderer because he's part of the Erdogan community. And look who else is sanctioning this. I hate to say it because I'm a former Catholic. The Pope has said nothing about dead Christians and is actually in partnership. Thank you. The Pope is in partnership with Islam. Yeah. If you simply go to the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops website, you will find very, very positive statements about Islam with no regard for what we're talking about. You will see in the I'm just giving an example. The evangelicals are also quiet about Islam, but as an international body, the Roman Catholic Church is 1 billion people. As an international body, Islam is 1.4 billion people. At an institutional level, not the individual Catholic, but at an institutional level, they are partners. They are partners in one world religion. Therefore, the Pope and the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops will say nothing about the dead people in Syria, nor will they bring up female genital mutilation in the state of Michigan. So again, interfaith dialogue, which I know you're going to talk about, Sharam, extensively and have, interfaith dialogue is a major international strategy between Islam and the Roman Catholic Church. It involves evangelicals as well. The point I'm trying to make is we need to understand the devil has formed an opportunity here for one world religion, and there's evidence of that. And the major influences of one world religion, on the one hand, sadly, tragically, is the Roman Catholic Church and Islam. And therefore, the Roman Catholic Church is not speaking out about dead people in Syria.
And this is the agreement. I'm coming to you, David Baldovin. This is the agreement that we saw between Francis and Mohammed El Tayeb, who is from, again, Al-Azhar, 2019, when they signed that document on human fraternity, which then led to the building of the Abrahamic family house in Abu Dhabi. And here again, one more time, this is from the Vatican Council papal statements on Islam. Right there, the Vatican, 1964. So we're talking about 61 years has been saying the plan of salvation also includes those who acknowledge the Creator in the first place, being among whom are the Muslims, meaning that Muslims are saved because they believe in the Creator. So, man, what a moron I am that I left Islam and lost my family. My family disowned me. I've had numerous death threats on my life for being an apostate, because had I just listened to the Vatican and the Catholic Church, I'm already saved apparently as a Muslim. This throws upside down Christianity. David Baldovin, go ahead and comment, and then I want to quickly, for the sake of time, come back to America.
Sure.
Because we have a lot to talk about here in America, and obviously we have to. So David Baldwin, go ahead. You had a comment.
Just real quickly, your comment on the sectarian, quote unquote, violence.
Yes.
Is that kind of like the Fort Hood shooter, workplace violence? It's just another phrase to instead of addressing the truth and addressing what it is, it's Islam, it's jihad. The media and the powers that be make up these narratives, such as, what you're talking about, sectarian violence. It's a way to cover up the truth, is what it is. Real quickly, going back to your to somebody's statement about apostasy, was it Qaradawi himself or was it one of the other imams or sheikhs in Egypt that said if it wasn't for the apostasy, Islam would not exist? So it's not us saying that.
Right.
It's them saying it.
It's them saying that.
Somebody can correct me on who specifically it was, but it might have been Qaradawi.
And guys, I'm not trying to correct you guys, but again, as of the current estimate, I just want you to understand that as of March 12, 2025, they're estimating that the global Muslim population is now 2.04 billion. So we see a lot of this 1.4, 1.5 billion, but in 2020, they were saying it was 1.8 billion. So because, again, remember, a lot of the places around the world where you had majority Christian populations, the Sudan, Ethiopia, Nigeria, Niger, the Horn of Africa, Syria, Iraq, these are places that are historic Christian areas. Those places, there has been so much forced conversion to Islam by violence that they're now estimating that number. So when we say approximately 2.6 billion Christians, as you said, Dick, about 1 billion Catholics, you have now, according to world statistics, global population is just over 2 billion. So let me go to this video. I want you guys to get comment because, actually, first of all, did you guys see Paterson, New Jersey? This is the statement that came from the Muslim mayor, because we're talking about Muslims. Okay, so we've established tonight, just as a review, jihad is not terrorism. Correct, gentlemen?
Right.
Jihad is part of their warfare in order to propagate Islam to the ends of the earth. So it's not terrorism. It's not radical. A jihadist or someone who is the mujahideen, is where the word comes from, is not some radical aberration. It is a communal obligation. Number two, we've established there's nothing radical about Islam. Islam is either fundamentalism or anybody that is not fundamental and following the strict interpretation is deemed as a apostate or a hypocrite and can be killed themselves, like what we're seeing right now as a perfect example with the Alawites in Syria. And that doesn't include the situation with the Kurds. It doesn't include the situation with the Druze and obviously the Christians. Number three, here's my question. Why is this a threat to America? We've already established that these are the crimes, right? We've already established that there are these Sharia crimes, which we would argue, and I don't know, David Boris, if you dealt with this. I was telling Dick Manasari that because I worked in Western Washington and the city of Redmond as a police officer, we had a lot of foreign nationals that Microsoft had brought in. So we had foreign nationals from Iran, from Pakistan, from India, and many of them were Muslims. And so on at least 2 of arrests that I was on that were domestic violence, they were dealing with Muslims, a man who had beaten his wife, struck his wife, assaulted his wife. And David, the individual tried to convince us that this was permissible in their home country. Did you ever experience that?
Oh, absolutely. We did. And I'll give you one that we experienced back in 2009. We had a Muslim female student that was raped at a local university. And she reported it to us. And of course, we investigated it. And shortly thereafter, she reported that her brother was beating her because she was raped. We could not understand why. We had no clue. I didn't know at that time why the brother would beat her. I've since learned that she has brought shame to her family, because unless she can produce 4 Muslim males to witness the penetration of rape, that is the only way that she can properly defend herself and not be considered a threat to family honor. She was considered a threat to the honor of the family because it was her conduct, her behavior, her dress, her seductiveness that caused the rape.
And we call that an honor crime, right? An honor crime that is perpetrated because she brought dishonor. And you're absolutely right. Again, things that most Americans don't know, don't want to know. Let's talk about these enclaves. Let's talk about what's going on. You guys are well familiar with the situation in Texas. This is now the latest by our buddy Yasser Qadi, who we all have tried to warn about when he sat with an interfaith dialogue with Reformed theologian James White, who sat in the church and said to the crowd, "This man is my mentor on Islam. I have everything I've learned about Islam, I've learned from him." What? And I want you to listen to this man. And then this Yasser Qadi goes on to talk about, deny Christ, that Jesus isn't God, Jesus is coming back as a sidekick to their Messiah, blah, blah, blah. But Yasser Qadi, we know, is connected to Nahadi Wad. Yasser Qadi is connected to Omar Solomon. Yasser Qadi is connected to Linda Sarsour. Yasser Qadi is connected to the upper echelon. So now Yasser Qadi comes and announces that they're building this epic. This is the East Plano Islamic Center city, folks. 402 acres, $1 billion project. They're already saying phase 1's already sold out. I know, by the way, I don't know if you guys know this, but if you donate, if you put down the $30,000 down payment, it's a tax write-off. Now, can I ask you guys a question? When I bought a house, my down payment was not a tax write-off. Did you guys, any of you guys get a tax write-off on your down payment?
No, sir.
But because this is an Islamic mosque protected under the First Amendment as a free expression of religion, their $30,000 down payment is going to the mosque, and it is now tax deductible. What a crock.
What a crock.
And so they're building this. And again, if you see, this is going to have a mega mosque, Islamic school, parks, prayer gatherings for Islamic festivals, and Eid during Eid al-Fitr, during Ramadan, I'm sure, a self-contained Islamic economy. This is their own post, by the way. A community centered around political Islam. And this is, we know, this is part of the non-assimilation. Then, gentlemen, I want you to comment, maybe David Baldovin, can you comment on this? Here we go. Patterson, New Jersey. City calls itself the capital of Palestine during the month of Ramadan that we're into, the 29th of March. Claims the mayor here, and here's the mayor, by the way, this guy. Here he is, the Muslim mayor. claims that it's the fourth holiest site behind Jerusalem, Mecca, and Medina. Fourth most halal holiest city in the world, Paterson, New Jersey. David Baldovin, how does this happen? How is our law enforcement and our elected officials so ignorant that they cannot understand the long-term strategy of Islam?
Well, we talk about the purging of training 2011, 2012, but the real sad truth, Sharam, is that the FBI, the national security apparatus, maybe except for a few individuals who I would not know, has never understood or wanted to understand Islam. Okay, that's even before the purge. I basically confirmed this with other people. We are, we're not trained. Number one, we were trained somewhat before the purge. After 9/11, but about that 10-year window there with people like Bill Gothrop and Robert Spencer and so forth, but then they were all purged out. So that was a short-lived thing. But even before, in my working years, we had terrorism squads, and they're called terrorism. I wouldn't have known what the word jihad was, okay, like I explained to you before my motivation to learn about this crime. But why should we be surprised? Really, you put the slide up there earlier. Dar al-Islam, Dar al-Harb. We are in Dar al-Harb. Okay, the rest of the world is in Dar al-Harb. Every country that's not Islamic, that doesn't submit to Sharia, correct, Sharam, is in Dar al-Harb, and it doesn't matter if you're Christian, Jewish, Hindu, a hypocrite.
Yep.
You're not a real Muslim, correct?
That's correct.
That's the warfare is against the other. Anything other than a true devout Muslim, which we've been talking about here tonight, what that includes, is in the land of war.
Of war. It's warfare. That's exactly right. And that's why, having gone to Minneapolis so many times, that's why in 2019, Dick knows this, I made the prediction that I said in 2 to 3 years, I believe Minneapolis will go to the upper house. They will declare Minneapolis as Dar al-Islam. They now have 4 members on the Minneapolis City Council. And then in April 2023, when they came out and declared that we're going to pass the resolution, the ordinance to allow the Islamic call of prayer, the Adhan, I can't stand that sound, to be broadcast on loudspeakers 5 times a day over 20 city blocks. The head of CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations folks in Minnesota, Jailani Hussein, said that they were shocked how easy it was because there was no opposition. And that said, this is a blueprint for every American city. So now what do we see in New York, right? We see New York then one up Minneapolis and say, we're going to allow the Islamic call of prayer every Friday throughout the entire city, no permit required. And Dick, I'm going to come to you in a minute. I want you guys to comment real quick on this video. Did you guys see this today? I'm going to screen share here real quick. Here's a couple of videos real quick from, and I apologize, folks, about the language on this, but we got to be able to see this. So here, sorry, let me go back one second. This is, let me go full screen here. So watch this, guys. Here is, you guys see these Muslims on the city streets of New York, and they're wearing the keffiyeh scarves. And look what they're doing to this woman who we believe is Jewish in the car.
Fuck you! Fuck you!
You scared now?
We're not here for them. You fucking dumb bitch! Fuck you! Fuck you!
Stupid, yeah, triangle, Hamas.
You fucking dumb bitch!
Yeah!
You stupid hoe!
Stupid, open your window, dummy! Open your window, now you're scared!
Bro, if you're here for them, stay with them. If you're here for the protest, go to the protest.
Okay, and then let me share one more here real quick, gentlemen. I want to get your comment on this. Sorry, let me remove that. and go to one more here. That was the occupation, I believe, of, sorry, I apologize. This is Sharam Hadian running the, right here. Here's this. So watch this, guys. And I'm going to, let me make this full screen and I'll come back and I'll start again. So this was, gentlemen, Trump Tower today in New York. Let me remove that. Trump Tower in New York, where we saw this mob. And isn't it amazing that you see the white liberals, the white leftists, the white anarchists, the white socialists and Marxists joining with Islam, protecting Islam? Comments just around the table. What's your thoughts on what we're seeing in New York just today? And by the way, they were protesting. By the way, the protest in Trump Tower was because of the arrest of what is that guy's name? Mohammed.
Columbia student.
The Columbia student who is supposed to be deported, and then some radical activist judge says that the United States government under the executive branch doesn't have the authority to deport this guy that's here on a student visa. He's not a citizen. He's not a permanent resident. That was what they're posting. Let's start with Dick. Your thoughts?
Well, again, the State Department can revoke visas. There's no question about that. I think you're talking about people who will revert to violence. And again, keep in mind, these are young people. They went to college, and in college, they were informed that America is bad and that they were completely gotten into social justice, including if they went to parochial schools. This is all part of the program. So they don't understand. And I think we have to realize that, again, I know you're going to do a lot more on this. Interfaith dialogue has made Islam okay. Interfaith dialogue, despite the fact, as you know, interfaith dialogue with the Muslims say that Jesus Christ was not the Son of God. He wasn't on the crucifix. He was never on the cross. And the Holy Spirit, the one that educates us on how to live, is Muhammad, who we know was a pedophile and a murderer. So all I'm saying is, when the church has completely dropped the ball, Islam is okay, and therefore you can come right out and do whatever you want to promote Islam, and that's what's happening in America.
Okay, let me ask David Boris. Did you see any criminal activity there, David, with the I mean, obviously the larger crowd, they're occupying, so I mean that's at the minimum trespassing, isn't it? But did you see any criminal activity with the individuals that are wearing the Hamas scarf, the keffiyeh, in New York on that vehicle?
Oh yeah, what you're seeing there is anti-Semitism on steroids, and it's something that I didn't think that I'd ever see again in my life after World War II. But it's alive and well, and don't forget for one moment that this is all being funded. Right, it is all being paid for, lock, stock, and barrel, by those people who are globalists, the people like. You name it, out there that are promoting this hatred, and it's going to keep up. It will continue to, they see an opening here to cause chaos in our country, anything to disrupt Trump. This is an attempted takeover of our culture. Yeah, absolutely. And I would argue, too, that there was at least an attempted assault in that situation. But from what I understand, though there were arrests at Trump Tower, obviously there was no arrest when that type of stuff is going on. David Baldovin, your thoughts on those videos, on these, and by the way, you guys can comment too on the enclaves. I mean, see, this is why I'm saying that America and some of these cities, Josephine, Texas, Patterson, New Jersey. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, let me go to the headline real quick. Where's my headline here? Here's Trump picking the anti-Semitic Muslim mayor of Hamtramck, Michigan, to be ambassador to Kuwait. Amir Khaled. Hamtramck, that is now a Sharia compliant city. Remember, one of the first things they did was ban the pride flags.
So the LGBTQ community was like, I don't get it. I thought we were buddies. See, in the lower house, they're buddies. In the Dar el Harb, they can be buddies because Islam can lie. Islam, it is not only permissible, it is obligatory in some manner to lie to non-Muslims. So they'll tell, oh yeah, we're for abortion, we're for trans, we're for drag. But funny how when they get to the upper house, all of a sudden, none of that. So they ban the pride flags. Where is the leftist media? Where is the ACLU crying foul about the Muslim city council, the Muslim mayor? And now Trump believes that he's beholden, I guess, to the mayor of Hamtramck because he helped them apparently win Michigan. David Baldovin, your thoughts on where we're at in America? Do you see some of these places, as I believe, upper house?
I guess I would ask a question here, maybe a rhetorical question. Wasn't it the NYPD about 2 weeks ago had hijab day?
Yes. And don't forget, they have a Sharia patrol.
Yes.
There you go. We perish. My people perish for lack of knowledge, right?
Right.
And so that includes law enforcement. It includes people in general. It includes the news media. That's what happens when, we all assume growing up, I know I'm generalizing here, Sharam, but that, what we were taught was honest and what was the truth, correct?
Right.
Nothing, I guess, could be further from the truth for the most part.
Yeah.
We were the teachers that we had, the professors that we had, they were probably all indoctrinated themselves, okay, and they just passed on what they thought was their knowledge, which was correct, to their students, which includes all of us. It includes law enforcement. So, I don't think we should be surprised at any of this, and we should not be surprised that the world averts their eyes from Syria, from Nigeria, because it's happened throughout history, has it not? Most recently, what David Boris referred to earlier, in Germany to horrible extent, the Holocaust. Well, what you're dealing with right now is basically the same thing. It's Islam. Islam is probably why these are my words here now. People talk about why the Middle East is always chaotic and in unrest. I would say it's because of Islam.
Correct.
Because the tenets of the religion of Islam, it's virtually impossible for people to live that way because it's against human nature. What is contained in that green book and in the Sunnah of Muhammad and in the Quran is virtually impossible for a person to live that way. And I contend that is why the Middle East is in constant turmoil. Let's not forget that Islam did not spread to North Africa and to Spain and through Hindustan, which is now India, by niceties, by peaceful conversion. Exactly. It was all done by the sword. So.
Exactly.
Thank you.
And that's why, again, we've established tonight, not only is jihad a communal obligation, but Islam would never have survived if it was not for the apostasy laws. And by the way, that people ask me, why do you believe the number one reason, and maybe on our next program, guys, we can get into this as well when we talk about the constitutionality of Sharia or lack of constitutionality. To me, the number one reason that Islam should not and cannot be protected under the First Amendment as a religion is because in their own laws, when they spell out who unbelievers are, and when they talk about non-Muslims and what should happen to non-Muslims, they specify in here in the Sharia law manual, in the section there on apostasy. And it very clearly says that apostasy is and I'll find it here in a minute, apostasy is a death sentence. If a person leaves Islam and does not return, it is a death sentence. So if you are not free to leave this so-called religion under the penalty of death, then how can it be protected under the First Amendment that is protecting freedom of religion?
Right. Brilliant.
Here is what David Baldovin was talking about. The NYPD openly recruiting for Sharia compliance. We have 1,200 Muslim officers, 10 who are in hijab. I'm looking forward to another 100,000 ladies wearing hijabs in the near future as NYPD. And this is coming from this NYPD officer. Wow. David Boras, we got to wrap up, guys, because we're already way over, but I went longer tonight. And again, please understand, folks, we're hoping that this is the first of many nights together. American Patriots, thank you for posting those links. I really appreciate it. We have some people online that will post the links for us, so thank you for that. But this is why we said tonight, in closing comments I want to get from each of you, Islam's threat to civilization. But it sure seems like to me, gentlemen, that the world and unfortunately many in the church, using the broad term, are in denial of the threat that it poses, just like many Christians today believe that hell is not real, that Satan is not real. You know, we love to talk about heaven and God, and everybody, believes that they can get to heaven. Everybody believes that, they can be a good person, but nobody wants to talk about what the Bible teaches. Closing comments, starting with David Boras, because you train law enforcement. What's your thought on what's going on with the NYPD, David?
Well, it doesn't surprise me. They were talking about that a long time ago. So you can expect more of it. I will just close by saying that a great Chinese scholar said centuries ago, if you want to defeat your enemy, you have to know your enemy.
Right.
You have to know your enemy. You have to know yourself. And if you don't, you're going to be defeated every time. And we do not know this enemy at all.
Well said. Well said. And we're praying that prayerfully there's an open door. Prayerfully there's more people who are willing to listen to this. Dick, closing comments for you.
Closing comments. Listen, I had an opportunity to sit in a 2-day class with David Boras. It changed my life. We have 16 hours of training that David has recorded. We have it. It's available online to anybody. It doesn't cost a thing. David Boras teaching his own law enforcement personnel what they need to do to protect themselves and save the lives of the men and women in their community. So I just want to make the point, David Boras has made this massive contribution, and anybody that's interested in that can go to Sharia Crime Stoppers, the channel on YouTube, and you'll find 16 hours of training for your own identification, or if you want to begin gradually to reach out to law enforcement. I hope we'll have an opportunity to shed light on this going forward, Sharam. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. That's my prayer. My goal is that we can then come in here in our next program and equip, like today, hopefully was just kind of the foundation. We wanted to, so hopefully, folks, you guys are going to do the following. You're not going to use the term radical Islam, radical Islamic terrorism, because you now know Islam is Islam. And those who are not adherent are the ones who are considered hypocrites. You now know that what jihad is, that it is a obligation. It is the obligation of every Muslim to wage jihad against unbelievers, be harsh to them. And when they get the opportunity, they will persecute them. And when they get the opportunity, if they won't submit to Islam, they will kill you. And so just wait till these enclaves in America become like what we have seen in Western Europe, with the violence, with the gangs, with the rape culture. And I hate to say that, gentlemen. I hate to say that that's what the future of America is. But I don't know what it will take unless we wake up soon. But on our next program with these gentlemen, it is an honor to be with you. We're going to get into more about what we can do to affect our law enforcement community, our elected officials with information. David Baldovin, closing comments for you, sir.
My closing comments will be very succinct. The Lord works in mysterious ways, and one of the ways that he works is by the fact that, as I mentioned in my opening, I did not know, I did not read the Bible. Wasn't exposed to it growing up. But through the manifestations of evil in this world, namely the evil manifested in this country through the Marxist Muslim Brotherhood Alliance, is what allowed me, and the fact that I'm an FBI agent really means nothing, folks. I want to tell you that the motivation to learn has to come from within. Even though what I did for 31 years gave me some insight into what was happening, it has allowed me, evil has allowed me, the Lord has used evil to introduce me to Shariah Hadian and to Dick Manaseri and to David Boris and other patriots around the country, nationwide, okay? And I've lost friends because of what I do, but I've sure gained a lot of friends also. And you are three of them tonight. So I just want to thank the Lord for working in that way, which is a circuitous route, okay? But I'm not going to be the first one that has been used. I would venture to say possibly Donald Trump fits right in there too. So.
Amen. Amen, David. Thank you so much. And it's been an honor to know you guys and to work with you and to fight for this nation. You know, I left Iran. My dad brought us out of Iran because he didn't want us to be subjugated under what he saw coming, which is now an Islamic theocracy that is Iran today under Shariah. And so it is surreal. It is grieving to watch America, this, you know, land of the free, home of the brave, the place that people come to escape oppression and tyranny, and watch what is going on in our streets, watch what's going on in law enforcement, watch what's going on. And, you know, I pray that there would be a glimmer of hope with this administration. I pray that there would be a glimmer of hope with law enforcement, with, you know, the Justice Department or with the FBI or with local law enforcement. But it's up to us. And as Dick said, folks, we're going to highlight David Boris's training over the coming weeks. We're going to highlight, Dick, by the way, it's on YouTube, right?
It's on YouTube.
If they just look up Shariah Crime Stoppers on YouTube.
That's exactly right. You'll see different activities. You will see a playlist, which is this training. So if you look for the playlist, it'll have 16 videos in the playlist, and that's what we're looking for.
Okay, and then you spell the Shariah with no H, right?
No, Sharia, Shariah with the H, Shariah Crime Stoppers on YouTube.
Okay, I just put that on the link, folks. So if you're watching, you can see that on the link there where you can go and watch that training. 12 sessions, right? You said
16
sessions. 16 sessions.
16 1-hour webinars.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And
recorded.
so we will have these gentlemen on again. I've told them that we want to open this platform, and I pray tonight is helpful. I'll close with this. And then I want to thank each of you guys for being on. It's truly an honor. Thank you so much for making the time. Thank you so much for staying longer. We normally do not go this long with our program, but tonight was so important for us to lay this foundation. I will say this, that number one, the only hope of America is returning to a godly foundation. We need an awakening and ultimately some sort of revival, but at least an awakening in our nation, back to God, back to the God of the Bible, back to our foundation. And number two, We do not hate individual Muslims. You didn't hear any of these individuals tonight say all Muslims are this or all Muslims are that. In fact, we said the opposite. And that's the opposite of the anti-Semitic spirit that is in our nation and many of our churches now, where you hear statements like all Jews are this and all Jews are that, and they're all liars and they all run the world and they all control the money and those statements are absolutely irresponsible and, in my opinion, unbiblical. If you love individual Muslims as a Christian, then you better be bold with the gospel of Jesus Christ. You better show them the truth and the way, because the only thing that will change their heart, the only thing that will change their purpose and their mission, and the only thing that will change their eternity is the hope of Christ, is salvation through Jesus Christ. That's it.
Amen.
Because we can pass every law in the book. We can even tomorrow, we could outlaw Islam in America, which of course is not going to happen. And it would not change the determination of people that are worshiping a false God, a false prophet, and what the Bible calls an antichrist spirit. This is evil to its core. There is no coexisting with it. There is no placating it. There is no, and as I started off tonight from 2 Corinthians 6, what fellowship has righteousness and lawlessness? We already showed you tonight Islam is lawless. What communion has light with darkness? We showed you tonight Islam is dark. That's why the hearts of these people become so dark. We already showed you that Christ and Belial, Islam is Satan. I mean, did we not establish that? Allah is the greatest of deceivers. David Baldovin said that. Read that from the Quran, right out of the Quran. That's one of his names in the Quran. He's the greatest of deceivers. We know who the father of lies is in the Bible. And what part has a believer with an unbeliever? Do not spiritually yoke with a Muslim. Rather share the gospel with them. Tell them the truth. If you love them, tell them the truth that needs to change their path, their mission, but also their salvation for eternity. So that's my closing comments, gentlemen. Again, truly an honor. Thank you so much. I look forward to being in touch and having you on in the program. Folks, we've talked about trying to do this about once a month where we can have this training and get into detail. And it's been an honor. I can't wait to see hopefully all of you guys in person here soon. And thank you. Thank you for your service to this country. Thank you for your service to our communities. And thank you for your service to the Lord.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Good night, Shariah. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you again. So, folks, thank you for being with us tonight on Truth Today. I want to encourage you again, if you have any questions or information, go to our website, visit tillministry.com. If you want to support this ministry, you can also go and make a donation on our donate page, tillministry.com/donate. We are 100% supported by you. We stay on the air and do what we're doing and travel and speak and all this stuff because of your support. It is 100% the Lord's provision that keeps us going. So if you want to support us, go there, make a one-time donation, or join our monthly supporters called our Gideon Army. So I want to thank all of you guys for hanging out with us tonight. Thank you all for your comments. Thank you for just being willing to engage this subject, even though it's very difficult. And this is Pastor Shariah Hadian with you tonight. Again, thank you to all my guests, David Boris, David Baldovin, Dick Manasseri, and we will be back with you live Tuesday. I have my good friend, Dr. Andy Woods. We're going to be talking about Bible prophecy. We're going to be talking about Israel. We're going to be talking about Syria. We're going to be talking about the confusion in the church. You don't want to miss that Tuesday show. We'll be on a little bit later at 12:15. We'll start at 12:15 Eastern time, and Dr. Woods will join us about 12:30 Eastern time right here, Truth Today. Sunday night, I'll be teaching on Book of Revelation on Facebook. We'll be live as well at not Sunday night, Sunday afternoon, about 12:30 Eastern time, p.m., 12:30 p.m. Eastern time. This is Pastor Shariah Hadian saying have a blessed night. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. We'll see you next time on Truth Today.